Hello, everyone. Welcome to our virtual architectural seminar series. We have been providing architects with these valuable educational opportunities for over 30 years, and we are pleased to find a safe way to continue to provide this value-added service. My name is Vicki Strand. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for Construction Supply Group. We're excited to begin our integration with our Construction Supply Group businesses and Whitecap. We are combining to better serve you. Our mutual commitment to being better together and building trust on every job by providing you with the exceptional service and knowledge of the industry. This will always be our top priority. As a reminder, today's presentation is an AIA-approved 1-hour, 1 HSW credit seminar. Today we will learn about low-impact development. Low-impact development has several advantages over traditional stormwater management approaches. Since impervious pavement is the main source of water runoff, lid strategies become permeable paving for hard surfaces. The course discusses one highly effective lid strategy of permeable plastic pavers. It provides an overview of plastic permeable grid paver systems and how they support LID goals. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's call. We do have everyone muted as to eliminate any noise and distraction. We've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. When you join today's call, you selected to join by phone or computer audio. If for any reason you would like to change your selection, you can do so by accessing your audio pane in your control panel. Also today, you will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send your questions in at any time. We will be collecting these and answering them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. I would now like to introduce today's presenter, Dustin Glift. Dustin is a senior business developer with TrueGrid Pavers, part of the Sustainable Building Products division of Airlight Plastics. Mr. Glift has over 20 years of experience in the permeable paving, stormwater detention, erosion control, and drainage industries. Dustin, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Vicki. Appreciate the warm welcome. Thank you, CSG and Vicki, for having us back, returning for another session. I want to welcome everybody from Whitecap and all the attendees, and we'll get started here.
Dustin, I think we might have lost you. I'm not able to hear you.
How's that?
That's better. There we go. Sorry about that, everybody.
Did you hear my intro there?
We did not. I did not, no.
Okay, so my apologies there. Thank you, Vicki, for having us back again with CSG, and welcome all the Whitecap participants and all the attendees. This is a low-impact development a presentation for AIA with permeable plastic pavers as the focus. We'll look at stormwater quality, stormwater management through LID focus as a low impact development.
Hey, Dustin, I believe you're muted again.
Something is going on. I do apologize on this. I'm getting muted here. I'll keep this. I'm not sure why that's happening. This is I'll keep a look on that a mute button there. This is an AIA HSW credit for credits session for 1 hour. Today we'll talk about permeable plastic pavers. We'll look at the health and safety aspect of how they affect the lives and safety of both aquatic life and humans. We'll look at cleaning the water with bioremediation and other techniques. We'll look at the detention, stormwater detention application of plastic permeable pavers. We'll examine the codes and standards surrounding the use of permeable plastic pavers. We'll look at the cross-section main installation of how we put plastic permeable pavers in most situations, most commercial and residential situations. We'll take a look at the advantages of permeable plastic pavers versus other technologies and other stormwater management and LID strategies. We'll take a look at some case studies, and then we'll wrap it up, hopefully with enough time for questions. So what is a pervious surface? A pervious surface for in regards to a pavement surface is very similar to an impervious surface that you recognize as ubiquitous all over the world. The only difference would be the wearing course here. A plastic permeable paver is porous when filled with a porous material, and then the components involved in the system, the subgrade and the base material, need to be porous as well. So if there are non-porous soils below, there are some strategies that we can accommodate for that design. And we also like to put, if you can see my cursor here, along with a lot of other pavement structures, we do prefer a geotextile filter fabric between that existing subsoil and the base layer. So a permeable plastic paver system as an LID strategy needs to be pervious in the wearing course and the base course there. Permeable plastic pavers are a subcategory of porous pavement. Since 2016, I'll get into that a little bit. CSI has recognized us as a separate category, and the correct plastic permeable pavers can be used in heavy load situations, so they're not limited to light duty anymore. There are certain manufacturers and certain systems out there that can accommodate heavy loads and heavy frequency of traffic. So there are a lot of permeable plastic pavers available. We'll talk about what makes a good permeable plastic paver. There are modular and rigid, there are modular sections, there are rolled sections, there are a lot of different manufacturers out there, and we'll touch on some of the most important components that make your system long lasting. Some of those features would be, in this example, cylinder shape, which is very strong in compressive strength. The upper left picture here, this particular one has interconnected walls, which also add to the very high compressive strength. In the upper right corner, that picture shows the flexible joints within the unit itself, allowing for freeze-thaw cycle flexing and for heaving soils without any cracking whatsoever. A lot of the permeable plastic pavers out there have built-in connectors. This particular one is built in right into the joint without having to without having to use added connectors or third-party systems to connect that. Permeable plastic pavers, especially when used with a stone fill or a gravel fill, will oftentimes have a grid on the bottom, mesh or attached fabric, and that will help anchor the product down to the base course and help anchor it to the without any movement. And many manufacturers out there use at least a percentage of recycled content in their resin to get some of those lead points, which I'll discuss here in a little bit. So a permeable plastic paver, one of the nice focuses for that safety factor is the reduction of flooding. You can look at, in many cases, 100% infiltration through the entire surface of a permeable plastic paver. Many of them with stone fill can have very, very low runoff coefficients. In certain cases, you can have a 0.0 runoff coefficient, and even in the worst rainfall amounts, only 5% of that water will convert to runoff. In conjunction with limiting the runoff, that will reduce the off-site water velocities and volume. So all that water is infiltrating right into the system itself. And with the use of these cooler surfaces, stone fill and grass fill, you have reduced the temperature of that water off-site, decreasing the detriment to aquatic life, and that hot water is not adversely affecting aquatic life downstream. One major factor for the benefit of the use of a plastic permeable paver would be the urban heat island mitigation effect. You will have a better solar reflectance index with a grass or even a stone infill versus concrete or asphalt. So the picture on the right there, you see a stone fill application, and the adjacent concrete and asphalt are many degrees warmer than that stone there. And then of course grass infill is much cooler than concrete next to it. So grass infill applications do have an actual air conditioning effect through transpiration through the plant itself. And then the gravel works by both insulating and changing the direction of that solar absorption. Permeable plastic pavers are one of the more effective ways, which I'll get into in a little bit, on removing pollutants from stormwater through bioremediation, through actually physically filtering the contaminants, and they remove both organic and non-organic pollution from stormwater. Another nice benefit in that health and safety realm would be reduction of waterborne pests such as mosquitoes. There's a great reduction in the pooling of water on site and not garnering the habitat that would promote any growth of these pests, these mosquitoes. And it also reduces the off-site occurrences of the pooling of water, therefore reducing mosquitoes and other pests. Detention ponds, a very traditional way of looking at stormwater management. They are very high maintenance in comparison to a permeable plastic paver. There's safety issues, there's insurance issues, there are contamination issues for the well-being of both humans and animals, aquatic life. So one major factor in the use of permeable plastic pavers would be the reduction of these detriments via normal use of a detention pond. Some other primary drivers of permeable pavement would be the environmental aspect and certification. With LEED and other certification methods, there can be a great reduction in stormwater runoff and pre-development stormwater runoff versus post-development runoff. We can manage that stormwater, we can reduce the amount, and we can filter it. So that stormwater quality and that stormwater volume is managed right within a plastic permeable paver. Then meeting those regulations that you have post-development versus pre-development runoff on site through both national and local jurisdictions there. And then many of the designers and customers really like the aesthetic value of a plastic permeable paver with a grass fill or a decorative stone fill. So as a low impact development best management practice, you have a lot of choices out there. You have detention basins, grass swales, But what I want to emphasize here is that a plastic permeable paver is really best in class at removing those common pollutants. So your hydrocarbon drips, so your suspended solids, your normal landscape type chemicals, and even some metals there. If you're going to start with a low impact development best management practice, I would encourage you to look at a plastic permeable paver. It is best in class when it comes to water quality. You can certainly lead these plastic permeable pavers to the other best management practices, and we would encourage you to utilize any of these other best management practices on site. But when you start, you may want to start with a plastic permeable paver. So along with that last slide, there was a study by the University of Washington that confirmed the previous slide there. In comparison to asphalt, a plastic permeable paver system had no traces of motor oil, diesel fuel, or lead, and of the soft metals there, copper and zinc, they were very, very low levels. So plastic permeable paver system studied in this 6-year example here, very well outperforming what you'd see in hard surface pavement. With a plastic permeable paver, you can certainly optimize your land use on site. So in the image on the left there, you would have a conventional system where you have your buildings kind of in that orange color, your parking lot with traditional impermeable paving, and then a detention pond. Well, with the use of a permeable paving system, you can reclaim that land that would normally be used up by a detention pond and put in more paving, a building, or some other structure there that you can reclaim that land use. So by utilizing plastic permeable pavers, you can certainly optimize that land use on site, which I'll have some examples here coming up. And then in Denver, they did a joint study with the city and county, and they found when you used detention within the cross section of a permeable paving system, you can reduce the size of the volume of the water storage that you need. So in this case, versus a extended detention basin, they found that you can size that stormwater volume storage need 20% less than that extended detention basin. You're not losing water to evaporation, conveyance, and that water is being treated right on site, so there's no need for a larger system. Many of you may be familiar with an underground piping system to hold stormwater storage. You're looking at pipe systems that, generally speaking, are under asphalt or concrete. And in this example, if you are looking at a pipe system, underground pipe system, there is a lot of excavated volume that is lost and not being used. So in this example, the area is kind of in that pinkish red color. You'll see the pavement system, the base layer, and then the bedding layer. That's all excavated volume that are required for a pipe system that is not being used for storage. Well, if you take that, in this example, the 32 inches of excavated volume for that system, if you reclaim that with a permeable plastic paver system, that 32 inches, you'll get over 1 cubic foot of water storage per square foot. So by converting this area from a non-porous system to a porous system, you're getting a lot more water storage volume. And in one example, this 3,600 square foot parking lot, if you're looking at a round pipe system, you could store about 10,000 cubic feet. Well, versus if we recovered that 32 inches, right, from this previous slide, you could store more water, get rid of the pipe system, and have a greater impact on stormwater volume storage. In this case, that 3,600 square feet, remember, you're already having to excavate that volume. So reclaim all that volume with a plastic permeable paver, and you'll get an increase in stormwater storage. But you certainly don't have to close that system, right? There are examples of stormwater storage where a plastic permeable paver can be used in conjunction with a underground stormwater detention system. So in that same example, if you're looking at 6 foot diameter pipe in that 3,600 square foot, in a closed system, again, you get 10,000 cubic feet of storage. But if you open that system up with plastic permeable paver all the way down, you'll get a 50% increase in your stormwater volume. So you're combining the best of the pipe system and the best of the plastic permeable paving system to get a dramatic increase in stormwater volume storage. And that's not exclusive to pipe systems. You can use arch chambers, you can use modular plastic or concrete systems. Now these volumes will be, of course, adjusted per project and per product, but there will be an increase if you work those two systems in conjunction with each other. And simple calculation for a plastic permeable paver in the detention portion, this is kind of a complicated slide, but what it's just saying is it's a simple calculation if you're using open graded stone. So you'll have your plastic grid paver with your base rock. So all we need to do is multiply the area times the depth times 40% in that open graded stone, and you'll get your stormwater volume of storage in an application. Now this is for a stone infill. This will be reduced to about 20% if you use a grass infill application. We'll get to that in a little bit. Here's one example of a large plastic permeable paver system for stormwater management in a large application here. So great example here. You're looking at almost 16 acres of plastic permeable paver for a automotive inventory lot. As you can see over on the lower right here, this inventory lot is being completed. The first phase was done in asphalt, and they know they needed a lot more stormwater storage, so they came in with a plastic permeable paver and a nice deep detention system, and were able to completely eliminate a detention pond and park hundreds of more cars on this inventory lot. In this example, they were using a 3/4 inch rock for the fill material, and between a 3/4 and 1 inch base rock to get that 40% void space. So almost 10 inches of total cross section, and in that over 15 acres of that parking lot size, they are able to store 213 cubic feet of water, 213,000 cubic feet of water in that area. So a huge stormwater volume for that acreage of that lot. And again, if we go back here, they were able to completely eliminate a detention pond there and park and have useful space for that inventory lot. And one nice note here, for every 2 inches of aggregate depth that you add in 15 acres, you'll get 43,000 cubic feet of detention. So by increasing the depth, which I'll get into in a little bit, you can certainly increase your stormwater storage capability. In this example, on that inventory lot, the EPA has a very nice low impact development calculator on their site if you want to utilize. It's not just for plastic permeable pavers. It has a lot of LID strategies, some BMPs. So certainly would encourage you to use those, use that calculator with all of your low impact development strategies. So in this case, in this lot here, you'd have 57 inches of rainfall per year. And in that plastic permeable paver, that current scenario, you're only getting 2.5 inches of runoff per year. And that, on the second to last line here, that's only when rainfall amount is over is about 5 inches in 24 hours. So you're not getting any runoff. You're not getting any runoff until you're hitting this huge amount of rainfall. And then if you compare that to the baseline scenario of concrete, you would get in an annual rainfall, that 57 inches, you'd get 52 inches of rain as runoff in this if you use concrete, and that equates to a lot of water, a lot of volume water, 213,000 cubic feet. And this is what the movement over this video here is what the movement of the water will look like in a rainfall amount. I know the product is not filled yet, but it really does not affect, in this case, the movement of that water, because in a open graded stone application, the infiltration rate can be as good as 1,300 inches per hour, which I'll get into in a little bit on some of the testing methods there. So in this auto inventory lot, there's a lot of environmental benefits. This particular product was made from 100% post-consumer recycled plastic, and that equates to 860,000 pounds of recycled plastic. Again, that 213,000 cubic feet of water equates to about 1.5 million gallons of water storage right in that cross section. And then compared to concrete, is the manufacturing of concrete has a huge effect on the CO2 emissions. Well, by utilizing a recycled content product, they were able to reduce their CO2 emissions by almost 4,000 tons of CO2 in this one project. Another example here, a more practical financial example here would be a storage facility. Again, a pretty good size site here of 11 acres. And they were originally looking at concrete again with a 2.5 acre detention pond. But by coming in with 250,000 square feet of a plastic permeable paver, they were able to eliminate that 2.5 acre detention pond completely. And what that meant here is that they had a plastic permeable paver filled with an open graded stone and an open graded base layer there. And in all the cost savings in this example, they were able to, that first line here is they were able to eliminate the construction of that detention pond, saving $140,000. And then these other components that you need in stormwater conveyance and quality, the pumps and the drainage and the grates and the curbing and all those other piping methods, completely taking that out for almost $190,000. Then the savings, the direct savings, the surface savings versus concrete in the first phase and the second phase, all of that combined by removing that detention pond and using that plastic permeable paver, saving $1 million in installation versus concrete. Now, that's not the whole story. One of the nicer elements is that this is a rental lot. This is a storage facility. We'll go back here, right? This is a storage facility, renting out RV spaces, etc. So by eliminating that 2.5 acre detention pond, they were able to garner 120 new rental spaces, and the projected lifespan of that plastic permeable paver is 25 years, even greater than concrete there. So you're getting 120 new rental spaces. Multiply that out, you're getting $4 million in revenue in this example versus a detention pond and concrete system. So if you add in that, we go back here, that installation, $1 million and $4 million of revenue, that turnaround in this project is $5 million there over 25 years. And again, a huge environmental impact. This particular product was 100% post-consumer recycled plastic, giving 230,000 pounds of recycled plastic credit. That's a lot of water. That 2.5 acres of detention pond is approximately equivalent to 340,000 gallons. And then that savings in CO2 emissions versus concrete there, 1,100 tons. So since 2016, the Construction Specifier Institute has recognized a permeable plastic paver as its own category. So I would encourage you to look in that section for your permeable plastic pavers. And when you're designing, those of you who are designers listening today, I would encourage you to use that number in your master spec there. You may encounter those contractors listening today. You may find the old spec 02795 and other related older specs have different numbers. They fell kind of generally in the flexible plastic paving, but now since 2016, I would encourage you to look in this 3214, 3313. Another major component of permeable plastic paver would be getting LEED credits on your project or other sustainable green development credits for different accreditation. You can look at water quality, controlling the volume, the water quantity, controlling the volume, the water quality, cleaning that water, urban heat island, which we talked about a little bit before, and then recycled materials, and then pollution prevention. So there are some other minor points, but these would be the 4 major categories that I would encourage you to look at if you are seeking some kind of green certification. I did mention a little bit from that video there that we saw is the tremendous infiltration rate of some of these systems here. Permeable plastic pavers, just in the way they are developed, have extremely high infiltration rates, and there is an ASTM test for measuring that. And these systems are scoring above 1,300 inches per hour infiltration, which would be a vast, there's no real rainfall amount that you would encounter that these types of systems, if designed correctly and installed correctly, could not infiltrate in. So that's where they get their great runoff coefficients and also their great infiltration rates from this measurement. When you're designing, I would encourage you to look at the products that would have the ADA compliant testing methods out there. There is an ASTM test and also a different test, a rotational penetrometer test measuring the wheelchair force and turning force of wheelchairs. And then there's also some local municipalities will also want some kind of in situ testing that they have from sites that have already been developed. So ask the manufacturer if they have those available when you're designing a ADA space in your parking lot. Recycled content is a big driver for LEED points, but it also, if you're looking at some of the developers and even on the residential side, the homeowners, they love the environmental aspect. Many of these manufacturers of the plastic permeable pavers will take your common HDPE products, high density polyethylene products. They'll crush them down, they'll grind them up, they'll put them through a pelletizer, and then the good ones will add a carbon black UV filter there. So I would encourage you to look for the plastic permeable pavers that have that UV protection, that long-lasting UV protection involved. Now on the commercial side, this would be a typical cross-section for a commercial parking lot. You would have approximately a 2-inch paver with an 8-inch base for most of those loading needs. And then as many of the designers out there know, on any pavement surface, we're looking at a geotextile fabric between that compacted subgrade and the base layer. So in this in this case, it's the darker line getting wrapped up here and around the top there. So approximately 10 inches of cross section in most commercial situations. That, of course, will depend on the subsoils and other factors, but this is a very common application. And then from one of the very early slides there, we saw what was labeled a non-porous subsoil. There's areas with very high clay content around the country and around the world, and there are some things you can do by use of a perf pipe integrated into that system to carry that water away. And it's not necessarily just for poor draining subsoils. This could be for all sorts of needs. This subsurface drainage, testing of water. This could be going to another LID. This could be going to a rain garden or a water harvesting cleaning system for reuse of gray water, that type of thing. So there are things you can do in the cross section to alleviate some of the needs of poor draining soils and other movement of that water. So we're looking at really a excavating depth commonly of that 10 inches, which I showed on that cross section. This excavated volume here going down 10 inches, then proof rolling and compacting that existing soil there. Then laying down a geotextile filter fabric or a geogrid, depending on the use there. It's not required by all manufacturers, but it is encouraged to get more stability and keep that pavement system. It's no different than a lot of what you're seeing in highway design for concrete or asphalt, getting that fabric there. In your base course, to maximize your water storage volume, to get all of the qualities of stormwater management that you need, we'd look at a nice open graded stone to get you that 40% storage by volume. You'd be looking at anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches. Clean washed is the best. That will alleviate dust problems, etc., and then a limestone or harder aggregate to support that load. So you'll compact that in the commercial side, usually an 8-inch minimum. So compact that in lifts, use that roller, align that rock in 4-inch lifts or 6-inch lifts, but 8-inch minimum on that depth. Then many manufacturers have pretty easy installation. Certain ones can use, just be stepped on and aligned and stepped on there to lock in, but you're looking at placing that plastic permeable paver directly on that rock, right? There's no bedding layer, there's no other fabric in this case, so it's pretty easy to get that installed. And then in this case here, I'm going to play this video here. This is how they're bringing in their fill material here, driving right on this product here. This particular product can withstand that load even empty. So don't try this with, make sure the manufacturer of your plastic permeable paver can do this, but they're dumping that gravel right on there and filling it in quickly. So very swift. And what does that fill material commonly look like? Again, an open graded stone, in this case, a 67 stone. In this range works really well. I'll get into some options later, but for your stormwater volume and containment, this is what you want to look at: 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch size. Again, clean and washed, and then the harder stone to reduce any chances of pulverization and dust. And this is what a completed system would look at. You can see that in the upper left here, we have some sheet flowing off of that concrete, impervious concrete, going into a stone-filled plastic permeable paver there. Now, when you're doing a grass system, which I'll get into in a little bit, the base material needs to be a little bit different because it needs to grow grass, it needs to support heavy loads, and it needs to drain. So to support grass and to support living grass, you'll need to look at a 3/4 inch minus sandy gravel material, And this sieve here in your upper right, this happens to be a Nebraska standard here. And I like this one because it is an aggregate base that they have for asphalt, but this will be nice for growing grass here. It has enough fines here, the passing 200, to keep that drainage and that grass growth there. So if you're looking at a 3/4 minus, if you can keep those fine levels between 3 and 7, 3 and 8, and certainly under 10, that's a good level to make sure it drains and grows grass. One nice aspect is it still has a water storage capability that is reduced from about 40% down to about 20% in that storage volume, but it still will store water in that cross section. And then your grass fill, your sod or your seed, which goes on top or inside. There's different methods for installation, but in this example, that thin cut sod is going right on that, looks like a little sandy loam grass there. Depending on where you are, you can use many different grass types. In the northern cold climates, blue rye fescue works really well. And in the south, zoysia or Bermuda. You can use a St. Augustine, but those roots grow sideways. Those rhizomes grow sideways. So, but it still can be done. So, I encourage you to ask the manufacturer what is the best grass for their particular product there. And here's just an example of what a grass parking lot would look like. You get 100% with these plastic permeable pavers. You get 100% grass coverage. There's no checkerboarding or as you'd see with some competitive technologies there. So one benefit of these plastic permeable pavers that I've touched on here is both the option of, really the same product. You have the option of a grass fill or a gravel fill, stone fill application. So that gives you versatility. The grass fill on those low frequency parking lots or fire lanes, and then the higher frequency, you can look at the stone fill. The other, I did touch on this, if you're not looking to drive exactly stormwater management or only need a minimal amount of stormwater management, you can look at alternate fill methods in the products. The photo on the left, that is recycled glass cullet, and this photo doesn't do it justice, but that really sparkles in artificial light there. So the nighttime, that really is a beautiful application there. And then you can mix and match fill materials, different colors, and then the photo on the right there would be looking at some sand fill, existing soil fill. So you certainly can look at those for non-stormwater management applications. And then there are manufacturers out there that offer delineation and signage accessories to get you the striping, to get you the either the ADA parking. Certain manufacturers have reflective markers, different signage types, and then in the northern climates, you can look at flat markers that can be plowed or snow shoveled or snow blown without affecting them. And then in southern climates, you can look at the raised markers to get a little added visibility, or mix and match, whatever you need there. Very common question: can it be plowed? Certainly, it can be plowed. We encourage you to use to raise that blade up slightly with rollers, skids, skis, and to avoid contact if possible. The photo in the upper right, this trained plow driver, he's got that raised about an inch. And here's what it looks like to be plowed. They've got a little bit of a rubber plate on there to minimize, but we'd rather have that blade raised. So this is no different than asphalt, right? You don't want to put any undue pressure on that plastic permeable paver. So while it can take this type of plowing, we would encourage you to train your plow driver, plane that maintenance person to raise that blade up. And then certainly one of the benefits of a plastic permeable paver would be the ability to melt the snow and have less occurrence of ice versus a concrete or asphalt system. So because the precipitation will land on the unit, on the surface itself, and it will start to immediately either melt or not get stuck on the system, you have less occurrence of snow and less occurrence of ice, standing ice. So you can reduce your use of chemicals and salts, and certainly when you're compacting that snow down by driving on it, it does not turn to ice as often. So that's one nice benefit of a permeable paver there. A great benefit at some of the designers out there, and some of the existing site redevelopment would look at, is keeping those old growth trees. You can meet those. You can meet this type of pavement, a plastic permeable paver, right up to that trunk of that tree, and keep that tree alive. You're not suffocating. There is transference of water. There's transference of air. The oxygen and the CO2. Moving up and down. So unlike an impermeable surface, you can keep that tree alive, and unlike other competitive technologies, a plastic permeable paver can go right to that trunk. One great benefit of using a plastic permeable paver would be dust reduction for these large equipment yards. You can look at not having the dust kicked up, not having to use tackifiers or water as often. If you place a plastic permeable paver with a clean wash stone, in this case, they put it, the photo on the left, they had compacted that gravel yard down over many, many years, so it was hard and impermeable. So they laid down the plastic permeable paver right on that compacted gravel that was there, filled it with stone, and virtually eliminated their dust. There's inside that filling inside that product, you have a dust-free and protection to pulverization. I shouldn't say dust-free. Very high reduction in dust. And again, you're saving on maintenance on the equipment as well. So you're not kicking up dust, so you have to wash the vehicles as less and have less maintenance on that side. So we talked about a little bit about parking lots and some other uses. I would encourage you to look at that lower left there. Any pavement under 30 miles an hour, there are these plastic permeable pavers that can take the frequency, that can take the high loads. So all of the areas under 30 miles per hour, I would encourage you to look at a plastic permeable paver as a real true alternative to concrete and asphalt. On the commercial side is pretty limitless. Parking lots, yards, roads, the drive aisles, fire lanes, etc. And then on the there's just so many residential applications as well. As if you're a residential designer, that really you can feel confident that these certain types of these systems will work very, very well. And then where does this go? Well, one common area is retail and light commercial parking. The lower left photo there, you're having the parking bays in a plastic permeable paver with stone fill, and then that sheet flow off concrete to get you that stormwater detention. The outskirts of this lower right photo, a lot of employee and visitor parking. And then the less frequently used areas, event parking or apron parking, lower use application parking, under 5 passes per day, you can use a living grass system. So very common to get that church parking lots, stadium parking, and lower use malls and things. Fire lanes, many of you, I believe, out there have encountered these permeable grass pavers, permeable plastic pavers in a fire lane application, but that's very common there. You have a lot of nice, in the lower left here, they had a nice widening. This whole area is a fire lane, but the grass areas are done with a plastic permeable paver. And then you have gravel fire lanes. If you have water restrictions in a certain area, I encourage you to use that plastic permeable paver is still in the fire lane. You can still get a nice permeable surface and have a reduction in urban heat island mitigation. Airport taxiways, aprons, those types of things. You can keep your air park open even in rainfalls, so the aircraft can taxi back and forth to their parking spaces without getting stuck in the mud. Quite literally, you can be open and taxiing in almost any rainfall event. So helipads, that type of thing. Encourage you to look at that. Keep that air park open almost every day of the year. Reducing your pervious surface for utility access, very common application for these plastic permeable pavers. Not having a lot of, you get the high strength, compressive strength, which I'll get into in a little bit here, but a very good application for the product. Then municipalities, right? They're looking at reducing their stormwater use and reducing their costs. Here over on the left, that photo, the off-street parking all over New Orleans with the plastic permeable paver, that asphalt is crowned to drain into that plastic permeable paver. You could use alleyways like in the center picture in Houston or in Colorado Springs. You can use isolated incidents, right? This is mountain runoff going directed right to a detention system with plastic permeable paver. And then if you want the aesthetics of grass, you can still have the infrequent off-street parking with a grass application. Heavy loads are not a problem for some of these products. So I encourage you to look at what their strength is and what their capability is, but it is not limited to trails. It is not limited to light cars or golf carts. These, with the proper design and the proper product, you can use these products in heavy use areas. And then event complexes. You don't want acres and acres of certain types of pavement, maybe. You don't want a tremendous amount of reflective or absorbing concrete, asphalt for heat, whatever it may be. Many event centers are looking at having cooler surfaces in their parking, their pedestrian areas, and then the upper right, any areas that the pedestrian may traverse there. ADA use, I mentioned testing a little bit here, but a great application to get that rustic look, stone fill application, and get that ADA compliance that trails and parks and even cities and schools need without the cost incurred with hard surface pavement, and you get the drainage and erosion control benefits. Pedestrian areas, again, and architecturally or design-wise, this may be an aesthetic value, but it's also stormwater value. And then around the house, really, you have unlimited uses. There are products out there, kind of in the lower right here. Some of these products are strong enough for horse applications, so you can look at certain ones for that. But really, driveways, a lot of different applications for these plastic permeable pavers. So I'll wrap it up for some questions here. Hopefully I didn't take up too much time. You get the benefit of a pervious cover all the way where a plastic permeable paver is. The whole entire area you can infiltrate. One of the biggest low impact development benefits is you get that very high detention volume within the cross section. So you can store a heck of a lot of water with the right design and the right product. And then again, many of these products have come a long way and are engineered now to receive those heavy loads that you could not have seen 20 years ago with these types of products. Safety, flood mitigation, low impact development, and protect those lives and the safety of property, people, and aquatic life there. So some great benefits. So you can certainly save money versus other technologies, but land use is a big one. You get a great alternative to concrete and asphalt you get the benefits of a plastic permeable paver and the strength capabilities of what you're used to using with concrete and asphalt. And then, of course, you get a surface that is beautiful and can store water below. So that really concludes. I'm open for questions here. Thank you, Vicki, for having us back again. I really appreciate. Thanks, CSG, and all the attendees here, and Whitecap for joining us. So I can answer any questions that that you have.
All right. Thanks, Dustin. Awesome presentation. Great information. As Dustin said, you guys have flooded us with some amazing questions, so thank you so much. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane as we're going through these. If anything comes up, we'll be monitoring those and we'll be having those conversations with Dustin. You guys still will remain on mute, just so that we don't have any issues of muting and unmuting. So keep those questions coming through that questions pane. All right, Dustin, we've got quite a few here. Again, this does conclude the AIA portion of the presentation, so if you do need to drop off, then feel free to do so. But we'll go ahead and get started. You did address, Dustin, in the presentation, some questions on snow plowing and winter market areas and removal of snow. Maybe if you want to just touch back on that again. We did have quite a few questions on that, so maybe if somebody did possibly miss that,
Sure.
you could just touch on that one more time.
Well, so very similar to asphalt, you can certainly plow. You can certainly plow a plastic permeable paver, and we encourage you to raise that blade up. But the nice thing about a plastic permeable paver would be it flexes with the freeze-thaw cycle, so there's no cracking of the product. You don't get the detriment of potholes that you would with asphalt or concrete pavement. The products are designed well enough to flex and to absorb that precipitation, so you don't get the occurrence of freezing, refreezing of the snow into ice, and really you don't get the accumulation of the snow that you would on an impermeable surface. So there are just a myriad of advantages in that cold climate area. But yes, there you can plow it, you can snow blow it. From personal experience, it's a little hard to shovel it, right? But if you do I would encourage you to use a snow blower or a snow plow, because that handheld snow shovel, I haven't taught myself how to do that very well, but it can be used in all climates, warm and cold.
Awesome. Here's a question specifically as it relates to a specific market area. Is grass cover a viable solution for parking lots in central Illinois?
So it's a viable solution everywhere. We have cold climate. Illinois gets a fair amount of snow and sub-freezing weather. We have those applications where a grass-covered parking lot is in use. We have them in Canada. We have them everywhere. So I would encourage you to look at the frequency of the traffic and the type of grass species. So those are the main two components. If you can keep that area from below 5 passes per day in that bay and even in that drive aisle, and you have the correct grass species, which is a hardy traffic species, you can certainly do it. There are some exceptions. If you want to contact me, you can use a buffalo grass in, say, a church parking lot that gets very, very infrequently used, only on the weekends. But don't try buffalo grass in, say, an office park on the outskirts. So we got to look at the grass species, and we got to look at the frequency of traffic for grass.
Well, while we're talking about grass, there have been some questions pop in about weed control. Do you want to touch on that also?
Well, most of these plastic permeable paver manufacturers would encourage you to be environmentally friendly. Weed control in both a grass application and in a stone application try and use an environmentally friendly weed control method. If your groundskeeper is qualified, they can keep that weed percentage down. But you're also welcome to use other coverage types. You're not limited to a grass. We encourage you to use a vertically rooting a vegetation instead of a horizontal rhizome. But weed control methods can be used simply with physically removing them or environmentally friendly chemicals.
What rock space volume do you suggest to use?
So depending on what your water storage volume needs are, most open graded stones, above 3/8 of an inch, reach 40% storage volume. So I would encourage you, if you're trying to maximize your stormwater storage, to use any open graded stone that's clean and washed above about 3/8. Now if you use sand types or smaller stone, you'll get a slightly reduced water storage volume in those, but they could still be used if you design the application correctly. So in most cases, you're going to get 40%.
We have tons of questions rolling in, so we're going to continue plucking away and I'm trying to kind of categorize them as they're popping in here. So bear with me a little bit. What is the rough cost comparison to traditional concrete, say 6-inch unreinforced over 6-inch granular, for example?
So you're looking at a plastic permeable paver in that type of cross section, a contractor price, you're looking at $6-7 for the whole system installed. That's going to vary across the country and across North America, of course. But if you're looking at a good complete installation, about $6 or $7 for a contractor price. And then of course concrete, you're looking at $9.50 for that type of, maybe just a hair less than that, maybe $9 in that type of application. So we're going to save 20% just head to head on the concrete as a concrete surfacing. But the real savings is when you get all of your stormwater management, all of your low impact development within that cross section. So if you compare the prices of what you have to do with a plastic permeable paver versus what you have to do with a concrete system, you're going to have to use some kind of stormwater management with that concrete surface. So in all, you're going to save 40%, 30 to 40% as a project, not as a surfacing, but as a project. So as a project, as a surfacing, you're going to save 10 to 20%, but as a stormwater management system, you're going to save upwards of 40%.
All right. Any concerns of hot summer weather with tight car and truck turning in the plastic structure, like you might see on a hot asphalt parking lot?
So there is some concern that tracked vehicles, especially, we would encourage no 0-point turns on a tracked vehicle. And then hot days, yes, you'll want to, again, make sure that you have in place speed limits of 30 miles per hour or under on these types of systems. And then, but really the only problems we've encountered have been with inexperienced truck drivers in heavy vehicles. The experienced tractor trailers and even some of the cranes that you may have seen, those are experienced drivers. And really, I haven't seen a whole lot of problems on the products that are designed very well. The only caveat to that would be an inexperienced driver with an extremely heavy front, where the load is on the front end of the system, and that there's no movement in that turning. So that may be a problem, especially with some of the lesser grade plastic permeable pavers. But in a normal commercial parking lot for light, light retail and even some office parking, that's going to be no problem. You will want to design in your trash bins with the small casters on a concrete surface. Those are even though the products generally are ADA compliant, the trash bins with those casters, you need to put those on a concrete pad. They don't really move well on a plastic permeable paver.
All right. Looks like there are some questions. Here's an example. We tried to use this for a walk from a required rear building exit to the public walk at the front of the lot with grass infill. The building official would not permit it because it required maintenance and could at any moment not be easily walkable for emergency exit. Have you had to deal with this elsewhere?
So yes, what we do to convince building officials and any certification is the proper fill material is really the key to that. If you use an angular gravel, if you use an angular stone, a sharp stone, a stone that interlocks, there is very little maintenance and very little movement of that rock. If you size that rock again above 3/8 of an inch to about 3/4, it doesn't move. It doesn't get trapped in tire treads, and there's very limited maintenance and movement. If you use a smaller stone, sands or crusher fines, or something smaller, especially smaller than 1/4 of an inch, then unfortunately, yes, you will have instances where that can erode away, blow away in the wind. So it's a matter of using the proper fill material and the proper product there. So we can help you the next time that you're looking at convincing that building official. We have installations that, over 8 years, they don't need any refill, and that rock has not moved. So using the proper size and the proper material will greatly reduce any maintenance issues.
All right. We're going to do about 3 more questions here, then we'll start to wrap it up. That way we're not taking up a whole lot of time. There are a few questions that we've responded to that Dustin will follow up with you on specifically, or he will send a follow-up to those of you where we maybe haven't had an opportunity to get to your questions. So I promise you that. There are a couple other questions here. What about containment of gasoline or oil spill?
So we as a company have had use of chemical spill containment systems where you would either put an impermeable liner under the product as a safety issue to make sure that that chemical spill does not move to sensitive areas. So you can design specifically for chemical containment, safety, and emergency. Now, if you're talking about accidental spills, you can certainly take apart certain products, especially with stone fill. It's a lot harder with grass fill installations, but stone fill installations, you can dismantle the products, remediate the spill in that isolated area, and put clean, natural materials back in there. So, and if you're talking about moderate amounts or light amounts coming off of vehicles, those will be remediated. Those will be bioremediated naturally, depending on what the height of the groundwater supply is. So if you get, a meter or 3 feet before that groundwater supply, most of those chemicals will be remediated before it reaches in moderate or light amounts. So it depends on whether it's a large spill or a smaller, normal, everyday use contamination.
All right. Is there a recommended aggregate for women walking in heels?
Yeah, you'll want to keep that under 3/4 of an inch. So anything larger will be will have too much of a void space, and you'll also want something that's solid. So if you go down to if you're potentially going to use a graded fill material like crusher fines, those will have nice solid surfaces, but will reduce your permeability. So keep it. You can email me with what your choices are, or contact me, but don't go above 3/4 of an inch. I would say even 1/2 inch would be a more smooth surface.
All right, and then we're going to wrap up with one last one here, and then we'll have a quick little closing. What is the approximate labor time to place 100 square yards of the grid?
So 100 square yards, let's see here. So 300, I'm sorry, 100 square yards. So we're looking at, let me phrase that this way, because my calculator in my brain is not computing correctly. So you're looking at about 1,000 square feet per 2-person man hour. So one person could do about 500 square feet an hour, approximately, and that would be almost the whole system, right? After you got the base layer down, it goes in really, really quickly. You don't have to bend over. You can snap it in with your feet. Our product, TrueGrid, comes off of a pallet in 4x4 sheets, so it really goes in quickly. So you could, a good rule of thumb is 1,000 square feet per 2-person man hour.
All right, awesome. Dustin, I'd like to thank you and TrueGrid for providing this great opportunity today, and thanks to all of you, our attendees, for joining the TrueGrid webinar. In the next few weeks, you can expect your AIA credit and certificates of attendance if you are a registered architect. Once you exit today's seminar, you will receive a survey on the presentation. We would appreciate if you would complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email this week with a link to view a recording of today's presentation. Again, we do apologize for the technical glitch that we had earlier on. So, of course, we're all learning and working together to make sure that we get you guys the best information. So to those of you that did reach out with some technical difficulties, I appreciate your patience as we work through those. So we will be back again next week with another presentation. So you guys are welcome to visit our website at constructionsuppligroup.com and go to the events tab and register for the additional presentations that are coming up. On behalf of Construction Supply Group, Whitecap, and TrueGrid, thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.